Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his mining ship, the New Horizon, watching the endless field of asteroids drift past the main screen. The Outer Rim territories were quiet today, just the way he liked them. Out here, far from Earth's busy space lanes, a man could work in peace without dealing with corporate bosses or government officials breathing down his neck. Jake was 32 years old, the brown hair that always seemed messy, no matter how much he tried to fix it. His crew respected him because he never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. When the mining equipment broke down, Jake got his hands dirty fixing it. When pirates threatened merchant ships in the area, Jake was the first to respond to distress calls. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," called out Lisa Grant from her station. Lisa was the ship's doctor, but she also handled communications and sensors when needed. Her red hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her green eyes showed concern as she studied the readings. Jake walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of strange?" "It looks like a distress beacon, but the signal pattern is nothing I've seen before. The computer can't identify the ship type or even what species might be sending it." Ben Hughes, the ship's engineer and pilot, looked up from his console. "Could be a trap, Captain. Pirates sometimes use fake distress signals to lure and rescue ships." Jake nodded. Ben was right to be careful. The young man had joined the crew just 6 months ago, but he had already proven himself to be smart and reliable. His black hair and serious expression made him look older than his 25 years. "Where's the signal coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa pointed to a section of the star map on the main screen. "It's about 2 hours away at full speed. But Captain, there's something else. The beacon is coming from near that moon system we marked as unstable last week," Jake remembered. They had detected massive gravitational shifts in that area. The smaller moon was slowly breaking apart, and its gravity was pulling everything nearby toward it. Any ship caught in that gravity well would be crushed within hours. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings again. "On the gravitational readings, maybe 3 hours before that whole area becomes completely unstable. After that, nothing will be able to get in or out." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Jake was thinking. A rescue mission in an unstable gravity field was extremely dangerous. If something went wrong, they could all end up dead or trapped. Captain Ben said quietly, "I know what you're thinking, but this could be suicide. We don't even know who's out there or if they're still alive." Jake stared at the screen for a long moment. He thought about his crew, good people who trusted him to make smart decisions. He thought about his own life and the comfortable retirement he could have if he just kept mining asteroids and stayed out of trouble. But he also thought about whoever was trapped out there, probably scared and running out of time. Maybe they had families waiting for them to come home. Maybe they were just like his own crew, working people trying to make an honest living in the vast emptiness of space. "Lisa, can you boost the signal and try to make contact?" "I'll try, Captain." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. After a few minutes, she shook her head. "The interference is too strong. I can hear something that might be voices, but I can't make out any words." Jake made his decision. "Ben, set course for the distress beacon." "Full speed, Captain. Are you sure about this?" Ben asked. "Someone's in trouble out there. If we don't help them, who will?" Jake sat down in his captain's chair. "Besides, we've got the best pilot in the Outer Rim at the controls. If anyone can get us in and out safely, it's you." Ben smiled despite his worry. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Captain. Course set. We'll be there in 2 hours." The next 2 hours felt like the longest of Jake's life. The crew worked quietly, preparing emergency equipment and checking all the ship systems. Lisa programmed the medical bay for unknown alien injuries, even though they had no idea what species they might be rescuing. When they finally reached the distress beacon's location, what they saw on the main screen made everyone gasp. A sleek, dark ship, unlike anything they had ever seen, was caught between 2 massive chunks of the broken moon. Now the ship's hull was dented and cracked, and sparks flew from damaged sections. "My God," Lisa whispered. "What kind of ship is that?" Jake studied the alien vessel. It was beautiful in a deadly way, all sharp angles and smooth curves that looked like it was built for both speed and war. The metal was a dark blue color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Ben, can you get us close enough for a docking tube connection? Ben studied his controls carefully. Maybe, but the gravitational forces are getting stronger. We'd have maybe 20 minutes before I'd have to pull us out or risk losing the ship. That's not much time, Lisa said. Jake stood up. Then we'd better work fast. Lisa grabbed the emergency medical kit and meet me at the airlock. Ben, bring us in as close as you can. Captain, you can't go over there alone, Lisa protested. We don't know anything about that ship or who's inside, which is exactly why I need you here monitoring the situation, Jake replied. If something goes wrong, you and Ben get the New Horizon out of here. Don't try to be heroes. Ben carefully guided their ship toward the alien vessel. The gravity forces were so strong that he had to fight the controls constantly to keep them steady. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he concentrated on the delicate maneuvers. Docking tube connected, Ben announced. But Captain, the hull of that ship is badly damaged. I'm not sure how long it will hold. Jake was already putting on his emergency spacesuit. Understood. Keep the engines warm. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Jake stepped into the alien ship. The corridor was dimly lit by emergency lighting, and the air felt thick and strange. He could hear the groaning of metal under stress and the distant sound of electrical systems failing. Following the corridor toward what he hoped was the bridge, Jake found rooms filled with equipment he could not identify. Everything was built for people taller than humans, with sharp, angular designs that matched the ship's exterior. Finally, he reached what looked like the command center. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and debris covered the floor. In the center of the room, trapped under a fallen beam, lay an unconscious figure. The alien was definitely female, with pale blue skin and long white hair. She wore what looked like a military uniform, dark and practical, even unconscious and injured. She had a presence that suggested she was used to command. Jake quickly assessed the situation. The beam was too heavy for him to lift alone, but he noticed that the ship's artificial gravity system was damaged. By rerouting power from the failing life support system, he might be able to reduce the beam's weight enough to move it. Working quickly with tools from his emergency kit, Jake managed to access the ship's power systems. The alien technology was strange, but engineering principles were universal. After several tense minutes, he succeeded in reducing the gravity in that section of the ship. The beam was still heavy, but now Jake could lift it enough to pull the alien woman free. She was breathing, but barely. Her left arm was clearly broken, and she had a serious head injury. Ben, I found someone, Jake called into his communicator, preparing to bring her across now. Hurry, Captain. The gravitational stress is increasing. We've got maybe 5 more minutes. Jake carefully lifted the unconscious alien and carried her toward the airlock. Just as he reached the docking tube, the alien ship shuddered violently. Metal screamed as the hull began to buckle under the increasing gravitational forces. Go, go, go. Jake shouted as he stumbled into the New Horizons airlock with his burden. Ben immediately disengaged the docking tube and fired the engines, pulling them away from the alien ship just as it was crushed between the 2 moon fragments. Within minutes, the entire area was filled with twisted metal and debris. Jake gently placed the alien woman on the medical bay table where Lisa was waiting with her equipment ready. As Lisa began her examination, the alien's eyes fluttered open. They were a striking silver color, and they focused on Jake with an intensity that made him step back. The alien tried to speak, but the words came out in a language Jake had never heard. Her voice was strong despite her injuries, with a musical quality that was both beautiful and somehow dangerous. Easy, Jake said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. You're safe now. We're going to help you. The alien stared at him for a long moment, her silver eyes studying every detail of his face. Then, to Jake's surprise, she spoke, in accented but clear English human. The word came out like she was tasting something unexpected. You saved me. It was not a question. It was a statement that would change everything. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and the alien woman was recovering faster than Lisa had expected. Her broken arm was healing at an incredible rate, and the head injury that should have taken weeks to heal was already showing major improvement. Lisa had never seen anything like it. Jake sat beside the medical bed, watching as the alien woman tried to eat the food they had prepared for her. She had told them her name was Zara Velthane, and that she was a leader among her people, the Valerians. Her silver eyes studied everything around her with the careful attention of someone used to being in charge. "Your medical knowledge is impressive for such a young species," Zara said, setting down the cup of water Lisa had given her. "Our healer said these injuries would have killed me if not treated within hours." Lisa looked up from her medical scanner. "We just did what we could. Human medicine has come a long way in the past century." Zara's expression grew serious. "Do not understand. What you have done goes far beyond simple medical treatment. You risked your lives to save a stranger. You used your resources to heal someone who could offer you nothing in return. This is not common behavior in the galaxy." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "It's what anyone would have done." "No," Zara said firmly. "It is not. Most species would have left me to die rather than risk their own safety. Some would have taken my ship for salvage. Others would have captured me for ransom or information." She looked directly at Jake. "You chose to help, knowing it could cost you everything." Ben entered the medical bay carrying a datapad. "Captain, we're getting some interesting communications from Valerian space. It seems word of the rescue has spread." Jake took the datapad and read the translated messages. Most of them seemed to be military communications, but he could not understand their meaning. "What are they saying?" Zara read over the messages, and her face grew pale. "They are arguing about what my rescue means. Some believe it shows humans might be worthy of respect. Others think it proves Valerians have grown weak if we need help from what they consider a primitive species." "Primitive?" Lisa asked, sounding offended. "Forgive me," Zara said quickly. "I do not share that view, but many of my people see humans as children playing with dangerous toys. You have only been in space for a few hundred years. We have been warriors among the stars for over 10,000. Jake set down the datapad. "Look, we're just miners, not looking for trouble with anyone. We helped you because it was the right thing to do. If that causes problems for you with your people, we're sorry." Zara studied Jake's face for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled, and her whole appearance changed from stern military leader to something warmer and more. "Human, you truly do not understand what you have done, do you?" she asked. "Captain Morrison, I am not just any Valerian warrior. I am Matriarch Zara Velthane, mother of 3 of our finest fighters and a member of the High Council that rules our empire. The life debt I owe you is not a small matter." Ben's eyes widened. "You're like royalty? In your terms, yes? And according to our most sacred laws, a life debt can only be repaid through the greatest offering our culture can provide." Zara paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "I must present my 3 daughters to you, Captain Morrison, as potential mates. It is the highest honor our people can bestow upon an outsider." The medical bay fell completely silent. Jake's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. Lisa dropped her medical scanner, and it clattered to the floor. Ben just stared at Zara as if she had announced she was going to explode. "I'm sorry, what?" Jake finally managed. "To say my daughters are the finest warriors of their generation. Each has proven herself in combat and earned high rank through merit, not birthright. To offer them in marriage to you shows that I consider you worthy of joining the most honored bloodline in Valerian space." Jake stood up quickly and began pacing around the small medical bay. Wait. You want me to marry your daughters? All 3 of them?" "Valerian law allows for multiple mates when the circumstances are exceptional. Your rescue of me certainly qualifies as exceptional." Lisa found her voice. "But Captain Morrison might not want to get married to anyone, let alone 3 alien women he's never met." Zara's expression grew concerned. "Is he already mated? I detected no scent markers or bonding signs." "No, I'm not married," Jake said, still pacing.
Oh.
"But this is insane. I don't even know your daughters, and I'm sure they don't want to marry some random human they've never seen. What they want is not the primary consideration, Zara replied. This is about honor, duty, and the repayment of a life debt. However, I believe my daughters will find you acceptable once they meet you. Have proven yourself to be brave, intelligent, and compassionate. These are qualities any Valerian warrior would respect. Ben cleared his throat. What happens if Captain Morrison says no? Zara's face grew very serious. Refusing such an offer would be interpreted as a grave insult to our entire family and by extension to the Valerian Empire. It could be seen. As an act of war, Jake stopped pacing and stared at her. War. Over a marriage proposal? You must understand, Captain Morrison. Honor is everything to our people. For a matriarch to offer her daughters to an outsider and have that offer rejected would bring such shame that it could not be allowed to stand. The High Council would be forced to respond. Lisa sat down heavily in a chair. So let me get this straight. If Captain Morrison agrees to marry 3 women he's never met, he might start an interstellar alliance. If he refuses, he might start an interstellar war. That is a simplified but accurate assessment, Zara confirmed. Jake ran his hands through his messy brown hair. This is crazy. I saved your life because it was the right thing to do. I didn't want anything in return, especially not this. I understand your confusion, Zara said gently. Your culture clearly approaches these matters differently than ours, but the life debt exists whether you wanted it or not. It must be addressed according to our laws. Ben was studying his datapad again. Captain, I'm getting more communications from both Earth and Valerian space. Word of this situation is spreading. Fast. Earth's Colonial Command wants to know what's happening, and it sounds like the Valerian High Council is having emergency meetings. Jake slumped into his chair. Great. So now both our governments are involved. Captain Lisa said thoughtfully. Maybe this isn't as impossible as it seems. I mean, you don't have to actually marry anyone right away. Maybe there's a way to handle this that satisfies their honor requirements. Without forcing anyone into something they don't want? Zara nodded. Approvingly, your medical officer shows wisdom. Valerian courtship traditions do allow for a period of evaluation. My daughters could come to meet you, and you could spend time learning about each other. If, after a reasonable period, either side finds the match unsuitable, other arrangements could be made. What kind of other arrangements? Jake asked suspiciously. Could be adopted into our family as an honorary brother rather than a mate. It would still satisfy the life debt, though it would be considered a lesser honor. Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. So I wouldn't have to marry anyone. If we all decided it wasn't a good idea, correct? Though I should warn you that my daughters are remarkable women. You might find yourself more interested than you expect. Ben looked up from his communications. Captain, I'm getting a priority message from Earth Colonial Command. Want to speak with you immediately? Jake sighed. Put them through to my quarters. I guess I need to explain to my superiors why I might accidentally start a war or an alliance depending on how this marriage thing goes. As Jake left the medical bay, he could hear Lisa and Zara beginning to discuss the cultural differences between humans and Valerians. He shook his head as he walked toward his quarters. 3 days ago, his biggest worry had been whether they would find enough valuable asteroids to make their mining run profitable. Now he was potentially the key to peace, or war between two interstellar civilizations. The communication system in his quarters is already flashing with an incoming message from Earth. Jake sat down at his desk and activated the secure channel. Admiral Karen Shaw's face appeared on the screen, and she did not look happy. Captain Morrison, what exactly have you gotten yourself into out there? Jake took a deep breath. It's a long story, Admiral. Have time. Start talking. As Jake began to explain the situation, he wondered what Zara's 3 daughters were like. Were they as fierce as their mother? Would they be angry about being offered to a human they had never met? And most importantly, what would happen when they arrived and this strange situation became even more complicated? One thing was certain. His quiet life as a simple asteroid miner was definitely over. 1 week later, Jake stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the largest ship he had ever seen approach their position. The Valerian battlecruiser was 3 times the size of his mining vessel, its dark blue hull covered with weapons that could probably destroy a small moon. The sight of it made his mouth go dry. "Captain, they're requesting permission to dock," Ben reported from his station. His voice was steady, but Jake could see the young pilot's hands shaking slightly. As he worked the controls, "Permission granted," Jake replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Lisa, is Zara ready?" "She's been ready for hours," Lisa answered. "I think she's more nervous about this meeting than we are. She keeps checking her appearance," and muttering in her own language. Jake nodded. Over the past week, Zara had told them more about her daughters. Commander Lyra Velthane was the oldest at 28, a master of military strategy who had never lost a battle. Captain Nova. Velthane was 26 and considered the best pilot in the Valerian fleet. Lieutenant Sira Velthane, the youngest at 24, specialized in close combat and had earned her rank by defeating opponents twice her size. All three were unmarried, which was unusual for Valerian women of their age and status. According to Zara, they had been too focused on their military careers to consider taking mates. This arrangement would be as strange for them as it was for Jake. "Docking complete," Ben announced. "The airlock is sealed and pressurized." Jake straightened his uniform and walked toward the airlock. He had chosen to wear his best captain's jacket, though it still looked plain compared to the elaborate military clothing Zara wore. She had insisted on being present when her daughters boarded, saying it was important to show proper respect. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Jake got his first look at the three Valerian warriors. They were all tall, like their mother, with the same pale blue skin and silver eyes. But where Zara's white hair was long and flowing, her daughters wore their hair in practical military styles. The first to step through was clearly Lyra, the strategic commander. She moved with precise, measured steps, her dark uniform covered with medals and rank insignia. Her hair was cut short and neat, and her silver eyes studied Jake and his crew with calculating intelligence. She was beautiful, but in a cold, dangerous way that reminded Jake of a sword blade. Behind her came Nova, the pilot. She was slightly shorter than her sister, with longer hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her uniform was different, designed for spaceflight rather than ground combat. She moved with the quick, fluid motions of someone used to reacting fast in dangerous situations. Her eyes darted around the ship's interior. Jake could tell she was analyzing the New Horizons' capabilities. The last to enter was Sira, the close combat specialist. She was the most obviously muscular of the three, though she still moved with surprising grace. Her hair was the shortest, barely reaching her shoulders, and she wore light armor instead of a dress uniform. Unlike her sisters, who studied Jake with professional interest, Sira looked at him with open curiosity, as if he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. "Mother," Lyra said in English, though her accent was thicker than Zara's. She gave a formal bow. That looked like a military salute. "We came as soon as we received your message." Zara stepped forward and embraced each of her daughters in turn. Jake noticed that, despite their formal behavior, there was real affection between the family members. "My daughters," Zara said, switching to English for Jake's benefit. "This is Captain Jake Morrison, the human who saved my life, Captain Morrison. These are my three daughters, the finest warriors of their generation." Jake stepped forward, not sure if he should bow, salute, or shake hands. He settled for a respectful nod. "Welcome aboard the New Horizon. I'm honored to meet you." Lyra studied him for a moment before responding. "Captain Morrison, Mother has told us of your actions. We are here to fulfill the requirements of honor and tradition." Her tone was polite but completely businesslike, as if this meeting was just another military assignment. Jake felt a bit relieved. At least one of them seemed to view this situation as awkwardly as he did. Nova stepped forward next. "Your ship is smaller than I expected," she said, looking around the bridge. "But the engine configuration is interesting. I would like to examine your propulsion systems if you permit it." "Of course," Jake replied. "Ben here is our engineer. And pilot, I'm sure he'd be happy to show you around." Ben's face turned red. "Yes, Captain. I mean, if she wants to see the engines, that's fine." Sira, meanwhile, had been watching the exchange with growing amusement. "So you are the human who has caused such an uproar in the High Council?" she said, walking closer to Jake. "You are," Smaller than I imagined, Zara warned, but her youngest daughter ignored her. I am not insulting him, Mother. I am simply observing. Zara walked around Jake, as if she was examining a piece of equipment. The council said humans were weak and primitive, but you did not look weak when you carried Mother from her damaged ship. Jake felt uncomfortable being studied like a specimen, but he tried to remain polite. I just did what needed to be done. Exactly, Sarah said with a smile that showed sharp white teeth. That is what a warrior does. I think I like you already. Human Jake. Lyra frowned at her sister. Syrah, please remember where we are and why we are here. I remember perfectly, Syrah replied. We are here to evaluate a potential mate and determine if he is worthy of our family name. So far, I find him interesting. Jake cleared his throat. Maybe we should all sit down and talk. I know this situation is unusual for everyone. Lisa stepped forward from where she had been watching quietly. I've prepared refreshments in the main conference room. Why don't we all go there and get to know each other better? Over the next few hours, they sat around the conference table, sharing food and stories. Jake learned that the three sisters were as different from each other as they were similar. Lyra was serious and focused, always thinking several steps ahead. Nova was curious about everything, especially technology and how things worked. Tira was more direct and emotional, saying exactly what she thought without worrying about diplomacy. So, Captain Morrison, Lyra said, during a quiet moment, what are your intentions regarding this arrangement? Jake had been expecting this question, but it still made him nervous. Honestly, I'm not sure. This whole situation is very different from anything in human culture. I want to be respectful of your traditions, but I also don't want anyone to feel forced into something they don't want. Nova looked up from the technical manual she had been reading. It would allow us to refuse? Of course, marriage should be a choice, not an obligation. The three sisters exchanged glances, having what seemed like a silent conversation. Finally, Syrah spoke up. In our culture, refusing a mate chosen by our mother would bring shame to our family. But you are saying we could choose for ourselves? That's how it works with humans, Jake explained. People decide for themselves who they want to marry, if they want to marry at all. Lyra leaned back in her chair, looking thoughtful. This is an interesting concept. What would you propose as an alternative to immediate bonding? Jake had been thinking about this since his conversation with Admiral Shaw. What if we spend some time working together? Your mother said there's been pirate activity in this sector. Maybe we could conduct joint patrols, get to know each other as colleagues before making any decisions about marriage. Zara nodded approvingly. This shows wisdom. My daughters are warriors first. They would respect a man who could fight alongside them. I am not opposed to this plan, Lyra said carefully. It would allow us to evaluate your tactical abilities. Nova was already looking excited. Could I study your ship's systems? Human technology is very different from ours. I might learn something useful. Syrah grinned. I could see how humans fight. Mother said you used mining equipment as weapons. This sounds entertaining. Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Maybe this could work after all. Instead of an awkward arranged marriage, they could build a working relationship based on mutual respect. Then it's settled, he said. We'll work together for a while and see how things go. No pressure, no obligations. But even as he said it, Jake noticed the way Nova's eyes lit up when she talked about technology. How Lyra's strategic mind was already planning their joint operations, and how Sarah seemed genuinely interested in human fighting techniques. Maybe Zara had been right. Maybe he would find himself more interested than he expected. The next few weeks were going to be very interesting indeed. 2 weeks had passed since the three Valerian sisters joined Jake's crew, and things had gone better than anyone expected. Lyra had worked with Jake to plan patrol routes that would protect local trade ships while also allowing them to practice military tactics together. Nova spent most of her time with Ben, studying human technology and showing him advanced Valerian ship designs. Syrah had become fascinated with human hand-to-hand combat techniques, now sparring with anyone brave enough to face her in the ship's small gym. Jake was beginning to understand why the sisters had remained unmarried for so long. They were completely devoted to their military careers and treated everything like a mission to be completed perfectly. Even simple tasks like eating meals were approached with the same precision they used for combat operations. "Captain, we're receiving a priority distress signal," Lisa announced from her station on the bridge. "It's coming from the Harmony Research Station, about 6 hours away." Jake looked up from the tactical display he had been studying with Lyra. "What kind of distress?" "They're under attack. Multiple ships. Unknown origin."
Oh.
The transmission cut out before they could provide more details. Harmony Station is a joint research facility. Both human and Valerian scientists work there, studying new propulsion technologies. Ova, who was working nearby with Ben, overheard the conversation. "If someone is attacking a joint facility, they might be trying to start a conflict between our peoples." Sierra entered the bridge, still wearing her exercise clothes from the gym. "Did someone say there was a fight?" "More than a fight," Jake said grimly. Ben set course for Harmony Station, maximum speed. "Already on it, Captain," Ben replied, his hands flying over the controls. "At full speed, we'll be there in 5.5 hours. Lyra was studying her tactical display. "Captain Morrison, we should contact the Valerian Fleet Command and request backup." "How long would it take for other ships to arrive?" Jake asked. "At least 8 hours for the nearest patrol vessels." Jake shook his head. "Too long. The station could be destroyed by then." "Then we go alone," Sierra said with a fierce grin. "I was getting bored anyway." Nova looked worried. "Sister, one ship against multiple attackers is not good odds." "Depends on the ship," Jake said thoughtfully, "and the crew." "Lyra, what do you know about the attackers?" Lyra checked her database. Transmission mentioned unknown ships, but the attack pattern suggests Zephyrian collective vessels are a hive mind species that has been expanding aggressively in this sector. "Hive mind?" Ben asked. "What does that mean?" "They share thoughts and move together like a single organism," Sierra explained. "Very dangerous in large numbers, but they think too much alike. They do not adapt well to unexpected tactics." Jake smiled. "Then we give them something they don't expect." The next few hours were spent in intense preparation. Lyra and Jake worked together to plan an attack strategy that combined human unpredictability with Valerian precision. Nova and Ben modified the ship's weapon systems, combining human mining equipment with Valerian energy weapons to create new combinations the enemy would not anticipate. Sierra spent her time preparing the ship's limited ground combat equipment, convinced that the battle would eventually require boarding actions. When they finally arrived at Harmony Station, the situation was worse than they had expected. 5 Zephyrian ships surrounded the research facility, systematically destroying its defenses, while a 6th ship worked to break through the station's shields. "The station's shields are failing," Lisa reported. "They've got maybe 30 minutes before total collapse." Jake studied the enemy formation on his tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in a perfect hexagon around the station, each one in the ideal position to support the others. It was textbook hive mind tactics, flawless but predictable. "Lyra, if we attack the formation head-on, what happens?" "They will converge on us and destroy us with concentrated fire," she replied immediately. "Their formation is designed to eliminate exactly this type of rescue attempt." "What if we don't attack the formation?" Jake asked. Sierra looked confused. "How do we save the station without fighting the ships attacking it?" Jake turned to Nova. "How modified are our mining charges?" Nova's eyes lit up as she understood his plan. "Very modified, completely undetectable to Zephyrian sensors, because they have never seen human mining technology before." "Ben, can you get us close to that asteroid field behind the station without being detected?" Ben studied his navigation display. "If I use the station's mass to block their sensors, maybe?" but we'd have to approach from the shadow side and stay very quiet. Do it. The next 20 minutes were the most tense of Jake's life. Ben piloted the New Horizon through the asteroid, fielded with incredible skill, using the spinning rocks to hide their approach. Meanwhile, Nova prepared their modified mining charges with help from Sira, who attached Valerian combat explosives to increase their power. "We're in position," Ben whispered, as if the enemy might hear him across the vacuum of space. Jake activated the ship's communication system. "Harmony Station, this is Captain Morrison of the New Horizon. When you see fireworks in the asteroid field, drop your shields and evacuate all personnel to the lower levels immediately." "Understood, New Horizon. Thank you for coming." Jake looked around the bridge at his mixed human and Valerian crew. "Everyone ready?" "Ready, Captain?" they all replied together. Nova launched the charges. The modified mining charges shot out from the New Horizon, each one programmed to hit a different large asteroid. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The explosives detonated simultaneously, sending massive chunks of rock flying toward the Zephyrian formation at incredible speed. The hive mind ships reacted instantly, moving to intercept the asteroid fragments with their weapons. But there were too many pieces coming from too many directions. Some got through, striking two of the ships and damaging their formation. "Now," Jake shouted. Ben fired the engines and sent the New Horizon racing toward the confused enemy ships. Nova had prepared their weapons with a mixture of human and Valerian technology that created completely unexpected attack patterns. The Zephyrians tried to reform their defensive formation, but Jake's unpredictable human tactics kept them off balance. Instead of attacking in the orderly patterns they expected, the New Horizon darted between their ships like an angry insect, striking and moving before they could respond effectively. "Their formation is collapsing," Lyra reported with excitement. "They cannot adapt to this style of attack." But the victory came at a cost. As they destroyed the fourth enemy ship, return fire from the remaining Zephyrians hit the New Horizon's engine section. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems began failing. "Engine room is flooded with radiation," Ben reported. "I'm losing power to the main drives." One of the surviving Zephyrian ships, seeing the New Horizon's weakness, moved in for the kill. Its weapons charged up for a final devastating attack that would destroy Jake's ship completely. "I can get us out of here," Sira announced. "But someone needs to manually redirect power from the emergency systems. The controls are in the engine room, and the radiation levels are lethal." Jake was already moving toward the door. "I'll do it." "No," Sira said firmly, blocking his path. "I am trained for this. My armor can protect me long enough to reach the controls." "Sister, no," Nova called out. "The radiation will kill you." "Maybe," Sira replied with a grin. "But I am too stubborn to die before I finish a fight." Before anyone could stop her, Sira ran toward the engine room. Jake could only watch helplessly as she disappeared into the radiation-filled corridor. Long, tense minutes passed. The Zephyrian ship drew closer, its weapons almost fully charged. Then, suddenly, power flowed back into the New Horizon systems. "Engines restored," Ben announced. "I can get us clear." "What about Sira?" Jake demanded. "She is unconscious but alive," Lyra reported from her medical scanner. The radiation exposure was severe, but not fatal. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Ben, get us to that Zephyrian ship. I'm going to board her." "Captain, that's suicide," Lisa protested. "Maybe, but Sira just risked her life to save us. I'm not leaving her unconscious while there are still enemies to fight." Jake grabbed an emergency spacesuit and prepared to board the enemy vessel. As he reached the airlock, he found Nova and Lyra waiting for him, also suited up for combat. "You are not doing this alone," Lyra said simply. "We are a crew now," Nova added. "We fight together." Together, the three of them boarded the Zephyrian ship and fought their way to the bridge. The hive mind creatures were dangerous opponents, but they could not handle the unexpected combination of human determination and Valerian skill. When they finally returned to the New Horizon, they found Lisa working frantically to save Sira's life. Jake knelt beside the unconscious Valerian warrior and took her hand. "Is she going to be all right?" She'll recover, Lisa said with relief. But she's going to be weak for several days. Sierra's eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at Jake with a weak smile. Did we win? We won, Jake replied. The station is safe, and the Zephyrians are gone. Good, Sierra whispered. I told you I was too stubborn to die. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for saving us. 1 month after the battle at Harmony Station, Jake found himself standing in the formal reception hall of the Valerian flagship Thunder of Stars. He wore his best-dressed uniform, though it still looked simple compared to the elaborate military clothing worn by the Valerian officers around him. Representatives from both Earth's Colonial Command and the Valerian High Council had gathered to discuss the formal alliance that had grown from his rescue of Zara. Admiral Karen Shaw stood beside him, representing Earth's interests. She had arrived 2 days ago and spent most of her time in meetings with Valerian military leaders, hammering out the details of their new partnership. Jake was grateful she was there, since politics and diplomacy were not his strong points. Captain Morrison, Admiral Shaw said quietly, Are you ready for this? Jake nodded, though he felt nervous. The ceremony they were about to attend would officially recognize the alliance between humans and Valerians. With Jake and the three sisters serving as symbols of cooperation between their peoples, it was not what he had expected when he decided to rescue a stranger from a damaged ship. The great doors of the reception hall opened, and Zara entered wearing the full ceremonial armor of a Valerian matriarch. Behind her walked her 3 daughters, each wearing their formal military dress uniforms. They looked magnificent and dangerous, like warriors from ancient legends. But Jake noticed something different about them now. When they had first met, they had looked at him with polite curiosity or professional interest. Now their expressions showed warmth and genuine affection. The battle at Harmony Station had changed everything. Sierra had recovered completely from her radiation exposure, though Lisa insisted she'd take things easy for another week. The experience had brought all of them closer together, creating bonds that went far beyond duty or cultural obligation. Captain Morrison, Zara said formally as she approached. The High Council has made their decision regarding the alliance between our peoples. High Commander Vex Northen, Zara's brother, and the leader of the Valerian military stepped forward. He was an imposing figure, even taller than Zara, with scars from many battles marking his pale blue skin. His silver eyes studied Jake with the same calculating intelligence Jake had seen in Lyra. You men, he said in a deep voice that carried easily through the large hall, your actions have challenged many of our assumptions about your species. The rescue of Matriarch Zara, your innovative tactics in battle, and your willingness to risk your life for my niece have proven that humans possess warrior virtues we can respect. Jake felt relieved. He had been worried that the Valerian leadership would see his rescue of Zara as a sign of weakness rather than strength. However, High Commander Vex continued, respect alone is not enough to build a lasting alliance. We must have practical arrangements that benefit both our peoples. Admiral Shaw stepped forward. High Commander, Earth's Colonial Command is prepared to offer full partnership in our exploration and defense programs. Human adaptability, combined with Valerian military experience, could benefit us all. This is acceptable, Vex replied. There remains the matter of the life debt owed to Captain Morrison. Zara moved to stand beside her brother. My daughters and I have discussed this extensively. We have a proposal that honors our traditions while respecting human customs. Jake tensed. He had been dreading this moment, knowing that the marriage arrangement would have to be addressed publicly. Lyra stepped forward first. Captain Morrison, over the past weeks, I have observed your leadership abilities and tactical thinking. You approach problems differently than we do, but your methods are effective. I would be honored to serve as your military liaison, working to coordinate joint operations between our fleets. Nova came forward next. Your technology is fascinating, and Ben has taught me much about human engineering principles. Request permission to establish a permanent technology exchange program, with your ship serving as a mobile research platform. Finally, Sierra stepped forward, her usual grin replaced by a serious expression. "You risked your life to save mine when you could have retreated safely. This is the mark of a true warrior. I wish to serve as your personal guard and combat advisor, ensuring that our alliance remains strong." Jake stared at them in surprise. "You want to work with me? Not marry me?" "We have found something better than marriage," Sarah said with her characteristic directness. "We have found partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals." Zara smiled proudly at her daughters. "In our culture, the bonds of chosen family can be as strong as those of blood or marriage. My daughters propose that you be formally adopted into our family as an honorary brother, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." High Commander Vex nodded approvingly. "This arrangement satisfies the requirements of honor, while creating practical benefits for both our peoples. Captain Morrison would become the first human to hold noble rank in Valerian society." Admiral Shaw looked at Jake. "The decision is yours, Captain. But I should mention that Earth Colonial Command would very much like to see this alliance succeed." Jake looked around the hall at the assembled representatives from both species. Then he looked at the three sisters who had become his friends and partners over the past weeks. Finally, his gaze settled on Zara, the woman whose rescue had started this entire situation. "I accept," he said simply. "But I have one condition." High Commander Vex raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "My crew gets the same recognition, Lisa Ben. And the others risked their lives just as much as I did. They deserve to be part of this alliance too." Sarah laughed, the sound echoing through the hall. "I told you he would say something like that. Humans always think of their pack first." "This can be arranged," Zara said warmly. "Your crew will be granted honorary status as well." The formal ceremony that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. Using ancient Valerian traditions, he was officially adopted into the Velthane family. The process involved ritual combat demonstrations, oath-taking, the exchange of family symbols. When it was over, Jake found himself wearing a Valerian family crest alongside his human captain's insignia. The three sisters presented him with a ceremonial weapon, a blade that had been in their family for generations. "So what happens now?" Jake asked as the ceremony concluded and the formal reception began. "Now we get to work," Lyra replied. "There are many sectors that could benefit from joint human-Valerian patrols. And I have so many human technologies I want to study," Nova added excitedly. "Ben has agreed to help me understand your quantum communication systems. And I want to learn more about human combat techniques," Sarah said. "Your people fight in ways we never considered." Admiral Shaw joined their conversation. "Captain Morrison, Earth's Colonial Command has approved your new assignment. You'll be leading a joint exploration mission to the Andromeda sector. Your ship will be upgraded with both human and Valerian technology." Jake felt a familiar mix of excitement and nervousness. "How big a crew are we talking about?" 50 personnel. "Half human, half Valerian," Admiral Shaw replied. "You'll be testing new models of cooperation between our species." Zara approached the group, still wearing her ceremonial armor. "My son," she said, using the formal term for an adopted family member, "are you prepared for such responsibility?" Jake thought about everything that had led to this moment. A month ago, he had been a simple asteroid miner whose biggest worry was meeting his quotas. Now he was a bridge between two interstellar civilizations, with the power to help shape the future of both species. "I think so," he said honestly. "As long as I have good people working with me." "You will," Lyra assured him. "We are family now. We face challenges together." Nova nodded enthusiastically, and we learn from each other. Human creativity combined with Valerian discipline could accomplish amazing things. "Plus, it will be fun," Sarah added with her infectious grin. "I cannot wait to see what kind of trouble we get into next." Jake looked around at his new extended family, both human and alien. Lisa and Ben were talking excitedly with Valerian engineers about medical and technical advances. Admiral Shaw was deep in conversation with High Commander Vex about defense strategies. Everyone seemed energized by the possibilities this alliance could create. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of his newly upgraded ship, the Harmony. Explorer watching an unexplored solar system appear on their sensors. His mixed crew worked together seamlessly, human adaptability combining with Valerian precision to create something neither species could achieve alone. Captain Lyra reported. From her tactical station, we're detecting artificial structures around the fourth planet. Possibly ancient ruins? Unknown energy signatures, Nova added from her science console. This could be evidence of a completely new civilization. Sierra looked up from her security station with excitement. Should I prepare an exploration team? Smiled as he settled into his captain's chair. Do it. Let's see what's out there. As the Harmony Explorer moved toward the mysterious planet, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. He had started as a simple miner trying to make an honest living. Now he was an explorer, a diplomat, and a bridge between worlds.